Hey folks, Internet Dude here again. Hey, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you'll probably have seen other Tesla videos from me and other car videos. So you'll probably know that I'm not your typical YouTube Tesla fanboy. I'm just a real owner and I'm just sharing my experiences with people, to help them out. So I feel like I just tell it like it is, whether it's good or bad. I'm not sugarcoating things. And if you saw my other videos, you'd know, I'm not afraid to say, oh, well, this isn't good or whatever. So what I want to do today is I want to share with you the things that have broken down or failed on my car in the 5-year period that I've had it. So I've had my car actually just a couple weeks shy of the 5-year mark. This is a 2015 Tesla Model S 85D, so it's 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, dual motor, all-wheel drive with autopilot. I bought this car new, and now it has about 96,600 and some kilometers on it. This video may be a little bit long, so you may want to set the playback speed to 2x just to get through it a little bit quicker. But I do encourage you to leave comments as you're watching and just let me know your feedback, good or bad. I want to hear it all, what you think. If you did see my other video, I did a video at the 3-year mark with all the problems that I had at that point. And so I'm going to review those items quickly and move on to the additional ones, bringing it up to about the 5-year mark. So to start off, I just want to say that the car's never left me stranded. It's never been broke down on the side of the road, and I've never needed a tow because I ran out of charge or something broke down. I feel I've taken excellent care of this car, in part because the battery itself, I really didn't go to 100% charge. On average, I would say more than once a month. And we didn't have Superchargers here in Saskatchewan until December 2019. So this thing's barely been supercharged. Okay, so the first two issues were here when I got the car new. First one is the door sill down there. The back lip of it was popped up just a little bit. And so that needed to be replaced. The second issue was with the leather on the steering wheel on the left side here. The leather was peeled up a little bit, and so Tesla replaced that as well. Both of those items were warranty related. The door sill, that was replaced in July 2015, and the Ranger came to my house to replace that. At that time, the fee to have a Ranger technician come out was $100. Since that time, that fee has gone to $1,500, even if it's a warranty-related failure. So that policy on the Ranger, which is now called the mobile technician, that policy's changed a few times over the years. But I think right now, just FYI, to have a technician come out to your place, at least in Saskatchewan anyway, is $1,500, whether it's warranty-related or not. In the event they're out here fixing other cars, they will waive that fee. So the next failure I had was with the rear seat accessory console with cup holders. The hinge on that broke actually twice. The first time I got it replaced, and the second time I just decided, well, I'm going to live with it because it's just going to keep happening. Since then, Tesla's actually stopped selling that accessory, I think for reasons that are, they didn't have a supplier that could make a quality product. The next issue that I had repaired was this piece of chrome back here, kind of by the taillights. If we take a look, this runs across, it says Tesla. But right in here, where it has the reverse light, this is a new part, but in the old part, there's actually kind of another transparent cover here. And condensation would get in there and it wouldn't clear itself out. So they replaced this entire chrome piece with the updated part. And so the condensation issue has stayed away forever. The next issue had to do with the passenger's outside mirror. And what was happening is the glass in here, like the actual mirror part, was shaking over bumps. The rest of the mirror was fine. So what they did, I actually took the car to Calgary in July of 2016 to have this fixed, but they replaced the entire mirror assembly with the exception of this red part. They were able to transfer that over, but I got a new mirror. So during that same visit in July of 2016, when I went to Calgary, there was no service center. And so the mobile tech was actually, like, I met him in a mall and he took the car to his house to work on it, and I just hung out in the mall. But I also reported a noise from the front suspension when he went over bumps, and he took the wheels off and he was inspecting like in the wheel liners and different things. He couldn't find out what the issue was at that time. So we just kind of left that alone. There wasn't time to keep diagnosing, and he didn't have access to a lift. So that was it for my July 2016 Calgary service visit. For the most part, things were fixed. As you can tell, one thing was still outstanding, and you'll hear about that again, actually. I did have a time after that visit that when I got into the car to start it up, I got a message on the screen, and it said, "Systems are powering up." And the car did not actually boot itself up in the computers. So what I was able to do was actually reboot the car, and then it worked okay after that. So that seemed to be just a software glitch. So since the Tesla Ranger policy at that time was such that I would have to pay $1,500 to have them come out to Saskatchewan and do warranty repairs on my car, I didn't get another service visit until about April of 2018 when I took the car to Calgary. So if you're paying attention, that was more than a year and a half that I was basically living with the Rattle because it was going to cost me $1,500 and they didn't have access to a lift. So it's like, what's the point? However, with that said, here are the issues that I had them address when I went to the new Calgary Service Center in 2018. So the Weatherstrip Seal on the left rear door came loose, and I tried to put it back in place. It was down here, and this had kind of all come out, and I tried kind of pushing it back into place because the seal is molded, and that's kind of how it fits, but I couldn't get it back in there. So they were able to I think they said they used Weatherstrip adhesive, and they were able to push it back into place, and it has not given me any problems since then, nor any of those other seals that are on the door here. The other issue had to do with the driver's door panel, more specifically the actual door handle. There had been some scratches on here from the factory back here, so when you pulled it open, it's getting scratched every time. This is just dusty right now, you can see that. I was able to finally diagnose that this little plastic trim piece was not installed correctly from the factory, and it was out of place, and just over time using this every day caused it to scratch in. So what they did is they ordered up and replaced this aluminum door handle release here. I think that was actually on the next visit though. I think they just, trying to think if I remember right, they just ordered the part during that April visit. The other issue I had at that time was I had a concern with the factory Michelin tires, and the rubber was flaking off on the tires. These are not the same tires, but the tire was flaking off, and I did a video on that quite a while ago. And when I took the car into Calgary, they looked at the tires, and that tire chipping, flaking issue was not there. So my feeling is that the highway drive to get to Calgary caused the tire to just wear down enough so that it was smooth again, and that wasn't really an issue. As of now, I actually had the factory all-season tires replaced last year with the exact same model, and that issue, it was kind of an issue again after that time period, but like the new tires have not done that. It really hasn't been a big deal. So during that visit as well, I complained about a shimmy from the front end under hard acceleration, and also that light rattle noise that I was hearing that couldn't be repaired the previous time, year and a half earlier. So they replaced the front lower control arms. I believe there's 2 per side, and they did an alignment. And that actually made the rattle go away just for a brief period. And the shimmy under hard acceleration, they basically suggested that I put the steering comfort mode, or pardon me, the steering mode on sport instead of comfort, which is where I usually had it. Although changing it between comfort and sport didn't seem to make a difference for me. During that same service visit, I brought up the topic of the 12-volt battery. Now, in my case, I was concerned that if the 12-volt battery, which is under the frunk, under the liner, that if it failed, it was going to be a great inconvenience, just in part due to that $1,500 fee that they wouldn't waive to come out to repair it, but because I'm so far from a service center. So Tesla was kind enough to replace the 12-volt battery at that point with a CD Nano carbon variety, and then they had to update the software to let it know it had that new battery. And the battery, 12-volt battery, has never given me an issue since, so I've been definitely happy about that. This was actually an issue more when it was colder out, but I had a problem with the driver's window not going up in extreme cold. It would go down, but when it was not fully down, it wouldn't go up. You had to put the window fully down to get it back up. One time it sounded like something was binding. However, the service center said this was likely due to the cold and maybe some possible ice interference. Now, when I took it into the Calgary Service Center, it was working fine, so there was nothing to fix. The other thing that I had there at that time too is the universal mobile connector, which is, the charging cable that you plug in. It was not working reliably. It would work sometimes, and then other times it wouldn't work. So they determined the problem was within the handle on the plug where it connects into the car, and they simply replaced the entire UMC for me. So that was the April 2018 service visit in Calgary. So I returned again to the Calgary Service Center in June of 2018 when they replaced that driver's inside door handle, and they checked the right front brake area for noise. I had noticed a rock lodged in the brake dust shield, I guess it is, and it worked its way out by the time I got there. So that was it as of June 2018, and my next visit for a technician was actually a mobile visit out here in Saskatchewan, and that was in November of 2018. So for that visit, the tech replaced 3 bolts on the steering gear, which was part of a recall. You might have heard of that one. The bolts, I guess, could corrode and possibly break, which would cause the steering gear to kind of move around. And obviously that was a safety issue. And at that time, the mobile tech also replaced the LED that's under this driver's door handle because it stopped working, which, as it turns out, that was just the beginning of my door handle issues. So he replaced the LED. I believe the wiring that kind of went along with it, reinstalled the handle, and then he also adjusted the passenger side rear handle because it wasn't sitting quite right from the factory. And yeah, that was that. At that time, he also took a look at the suspension to try to find what was causing the noise over bumps, and wasn't able to find anything at that time. And for whatever reason, shortly after the mobile tech replaced the LED on that door handle, this door handle broke. It wouldn't present itself, so you couldn't open the door. But what I was eventually able to do was get a little plastic trim tool behind there, pull the handle out, put a loop of tape on it, and then I could manually pull the handle out. When that happens, it indicates that the paddle gear inside has broken and it's not pushing the door handle out properly. I believe this was the same time, I think, when the tech was Looking at the front end to try and figure out where this noise was coming from over bumps, he discovered that the front axle seals were leaking on the front drive unit on both sides. And that's when he broke the news to me that, oh, you're going to have to go back to Calgary to get that fixed. So in January of 2019, I took another trip to Calgary to get the car repaired. So they replaced those seals that were part of the drive unit. I had them also look at an issue where there was some wind noise coming from these small triangle windows on the front doors, and they were able to put in some foam into the Weatherstrip, I believe, to kind of fix that. I also mentioned that kind of a rattling noise under hard acceleration from the front end, and this time they replaced the front axle shafts or drive shafts. Also on that visit, the driver's door handle that was just replaced was making a squeaking noise, so they just adjusted the door handle a little bit to make the squeak noise go away. One more thing I had done at that time is I was coming up just a few months away from the comprehensive warranty ending, and so I paid to have the 4th annual service done. Now, I hadn't actually had the first 3 done, just, mainly due to there was not even a service center in Calgary for one, so I really couldn't do it the first few years, and the ranger fee, of course. But so I thought, well, let's get the 4th annual service done while I'm here, and give me a little bit of peace of mind. So they replaced the battery coolant, the cabin air filter, the wipers. They did an inspection of many things, I think, and they gave the car an alignment. So that 4th annual service cost me $866. At that point, I was quite sure I wasn't going to get the extended warranty, so I'm like, well, paying for this 4th annual service, getting everything checked over, should hopefully mean I don't have any issues and give me some peace of mind. The extended warranty was quite pricey. So a bit later in March of 2019, this door handle failed. So this one replaced, good to go. A couple months later, that one goes bad. And so a mobile tech came out that time, which was nice, and was able to repair that handle. I can't remember 100% off the top of my head if they put the new version 3 handle in or not. So skip ahead a few more months, and in July of 2019, this door handle had failed. And the mobile tech came out again to repair this door handle. And he was going to replace it with the V3, or the latest version of door handle, but he actually didn't have quite all the right parts with him. So he wasn't able to complete the repair at that time, but he changed out the paddle gear and the wiring and said, it should still be replaced. So there's another follow-up here. But he also took a look at the remaining door handle. If you'll note, now July 2019, I'm actually out of warranty, but I talked to them about these door handles when the car was still under warranty. And so they looked at the right rear handle, which was the only remaining original handle, and they determined that the wiring was fine, there was no corrosion, and he put in the updated paddle gear and replaced the wiring harness I think he replaced the wiring harness, but there is no new handle parts, because the new handle requires another body control module that gets mounted inside the door panel, which is essentially taking some of the wiring out of the handle itself. The best part of that visit in July of 2019 is that I also mentioned that rattle over bumps, and it was much more apparent coming from the right front side. Now, if you've been paying attention, you'll know I've complained about that for years. But why I say this one is, the best news is because he was able to successfully diagnose that the problem was with the brake pads themselves kind of moving a little bit in the caliper. And he was able to kind of move it around and actually verify that is the problem. So He ordered up brake pads for the front to be replaced, and yeah, that was very good. So in October of 2019, a few months later, Mobile Tech was back out in Saskatchewan, was able to bring the remaining parts to fix the right front door handle, again under warranty, and also was able to change out the front brake pads. And then after years of living with that rattle from the front end, it is gone. I can't tell you what a relief that was. It was great to have that rattle gone, but at the same time, it's kind of an early adopter problem to have to put up with it for so long, just because, you know, they weren't able to find it, and it's difficult to get timely service out here. So the other thing I had an issue with at that point, and I made a video about this, it was called something to the effect of my second out of warranty repair on my Tesla. And basically, if you look, the car has a, car's got the steering wheel, steering column, inside the car, steering column or shaft kind of, underneath the frunk area that goes down to the steering gear. Well, in amongst there is a universal joint that connects the steering column down to the steering gear, and that part had failed. That's a part that would normally last the life of a car. Let's just say I have heard of this happening. I wouldn't say it's common on the Model S, but I've heard of at least a half a dozen, well, probably more than that, probably at least 10 people or more that have reported the same problem in, 100,000 kilometers or less. Like in my case, I think it was around 80,000 kilometers. I don't even remember exactly. Maybe it was a bit more. But that's something that you shouldn't have to replace ever. So in my case, I was out of warranty. It cost me about $504. I had the Tesla tech do that when he was here. And after seeing it, I'm kind of glad I didn't try to do that, because it was pretty involved. They had to go through the wheel well up here with many tools and kind of get at it. It was a bit of a struggle. In December of 2019, I had a message come up about the charge port door sensor fault. The message went away after a day, and it was determined that what had happened is I'd gone through a touchless car wash, and I think some water just kind of got blasted in there. And being winter in December, I think it just froze. And so then the sensor couldn't tell what position the door was in. So a day or two later, the ice had melted, water had evaporated, because I park it in a heated garage. And the problem was gone. The message was gone, didn't come back. So didn't worry about replacing any parts there. And even now it's March and that message hasn't come up again, so really not worried about that at all. So as I mentioned, this was December 2019. This was the time where we finally got Superchargers in Saskatchewan. Elon had said, oh yeah, coming soon, end of 2017, we'll be rolling out on the Trans-Canada, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Swift Current will be getting one. 2017 didn't happen. Then 2018, it showed up on Tesla's map, coming soon, 2018. No, it was a couple days before Christmas of 2019 that we finally got Superchargers. So can you believe I had this car with free supercharging for over 4.5 years, and I could only supercharge when I got to Calgary, basically. So it's pretty meaningless to me, to be honest. So jump ahead just a bit to January of this year, 2020, and I parked the car at the Supercharger after leaving my heated garage, and I plugged in and left the car, and it wasn't charging. So, I mean, it was cold outside, but it wasn't like, the car shouldn't have been cold. Like, the battery shouldn't have been cold because it was sitting in the heated garage. Took it over, would not charge. And so I just left it there and left it there longer. And actually, I left it plugged in at the Supercharger for 2.5 hours. I tried turning up the interior cabin heat, wouldn't help. And so I'm like, okay, there's something like definitely wrong. Now, I had reported back in February of 2018, I did a video about that actually, about not being able to charge in the cold. For the most part, the charging is not done outside in the cold like that when the whole car is cold, because my garage is heated. And so I reported it in February 2018, and that's when they told me, like, oh, well, if the battery heater failed, you should have a message on the screen and turn the heater on inside the car and things like that. Well, I contacted Tesla about that, and they told me that they looked at the logs, and there was some kind of, I guess, here, let me quote it for you. A couple alerts that potentially indicate an issue with the high voltage system. So basically what that meant is I would have to take the car back to Calgary to a service center, because a mobile tech couldn't actually do all that diagnosis and repair, at my house kind of thing. So I contacted the Calgary service center, made an appointment, and took the car in, and they were like, okay, I'm pretty sure it's a battery heater. And I was like, I've reported this issue in the past, like 2 years ago. And so they're like, well, we'll look into that. And actually, I did a video on this one too. But so they said, well, it'll be about $1,100 to replace your battery heater, and you should be good to go. And I was like, okay, like I reported this. And then they're like, well, they looked into it and there's no record that I had reported it. And I mean, I know I phoned roadside assistance and went through this, and I had a video, but they had no record of that phone call. So if you're communicating with Tesla, try to do things by email, not phone, because it might not be a record if you do it by phone. Anyway, so they technically misdiagnosed it because the battery heater wasn't the root cause of the problem. It was actually a high voltage junction box. So because they had essentially kind of misdiagnosed initially, they said, well, we're not going to charge you the $1,100. We'll charge you $826, which was the cost to replace the high voltage junction box. So at the end of all that, basically I was out about 5 days time. Driving to Calgary takes pretty much a day really with the charging. And, hotel stays and stuff to get that issue resolved. It is nice to have the car battery heater working good, because the car can now charge flawlessly in the cold, and it can better manage its battery. So that brings us to now, which is March of 2020. And as you can tell, the car's had its share of issues over the years. I'm happy the car's never left me stranded. It hasn't needed a tow. For breakdowns, it did get in one accident where it needed a tow. But I would say, realistically, the car's been mostly reliable, but the need for constant repairs is getting tiring. Today, the car is in perfect working condition without a single fault, which is why it's time to move it along. It seems to me, from reading forums and social media, that the Model 3 is more reliable overall compared to my experience with this car, although nobody's had a Model 3 for 5 years. The Model X definitely seems to be more troublesome, and very much so due to the falcon wing doors. So I would rank them in order of reliability and repairs. Model 3 probably number 1, Model S number 2, Model X number 3. So based on my 5 years experience with owning this Tesla Model S, if reliability is important to you, you should buy a Toyota or a Honda. The problem with Toyota and Honda is their electric vehicle offerings don't come anywhere close to Tesla. If you still want to buy a Tesla, I think your best choice today is to go for the Model 3, as it is more reliable and is a better value than the S or the X. I'm not sure if the Model X today is more trouble-free. I suspect not, and would not recommend you buy an X unless you live close to a service center. If you are interested in the Model Y, which I think's either in production right now or it's real close, personally I'd recommend you wait a while they work out the initial bugs on that one. It's pretty much inevitable. First year of production is going to have some bugs. One piece of advice I'll give you is, if you are considering buying a Tesla now, don't buy it based on what's coming one day. Buy it for what it is right now. You never know how long it takes Tesla to deliver on their promises. Like, look at full self-driving. Elon had said, oh yeah, it's going to be feature complete by the end of this year, meaning last year, 2019. And we're into March, and now they're talking about rolling out a few more things, but it's still not feature complete. Well, if you've made it this far, I hope you found this information helpful. Honestly, owning and driving the Tesla for 5 years has been life-changing. I have met so many people. I've made new friends, I've attended more car shows than ever, and overall, owning the car has been a positive experience. Even 5 years later, I still see people pointing, smiling, giving thumbs up, taking pictures, and stopping to ask me questions about the car on a regular basis. So, thanks for watching. Leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about Tesla's reliability, or if you have any questions or feedback for me.